Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Maggie, your fearless marketing coach. And today on my show, I have a pleasure to meet with amazing woman that I have met not very long ago, maybe 2 months, maybe less, Tammy McCann. We've been participating together at the VIP event where I was hoping really to work on my fears to be visible, to especially I wanted to fight my fears to be live with Facebook Lives. And believe it or not, but within these 2 months, I wouldn't say that I feel maybe 100% comfortable doing this, but certainly I'm not scared. So there is room for improvement, but I feel really, really all right. So welcome, Tammy McCann. It is
Thank you for having me.
great to have you here. And I have received from Tammy the bio. I wanted to introduce her, but honestly, this bio is written in such a way that I would never, with my English, repeat it in such a fantastic summary. So let me read it. Um, Tammy is Tammy. Tammy is an intuitive quantum transformation coach and a trainer. She's helping entrepreneurs to create quantum shifts in their life in order to be on purpose and abundant. Through a blend of science and spiritual principles, Tammy teaches her clients how to harness their inner power to have the confidence to transform any area of their life or business, no matter how bad it may appear, and choose to live life by design. How beautiful is that? Tammy's unique blend of Eastern and Western philosophies provide her with a pragmatic approach to helping her clients manifest miraculous life changes through her quantum programs, which provide a step-by-step approach for going deep and shifting any situation into one which truly aligns with their desires and purpose. I love it. It's really very, very, especially, first of all, truthful and really round and really nicely prepared. I know that Tammy is working with her clients with actually variety of topics. She's helping them to turn the business around. She's helping them to increase and massively increase the personal wealth, financial wealth especially, transforms their health issues, even when the doctors are hopeless in a way. And also, Tammy is working with her clients on disastrous relationships. So I think you are working with your clients with any important area of life,
Yeah,
giving them this quantum shifts. I admire this, and really, this is a fantastic achievement. And I'm happy to know you, Tammy.
thank you. Yes, it
Um,
really is a passion. So these principles do underlie every aspect of our lives. And even though initially it was something that I was helping business owners and service providers with, ultimately is anyone who has an expertise or a wisdom that they can put out in the world to make a difference and to be on purpose and make an impact. And sometimes life gets in the way. Sometimes, the business vehicle doesn't always work for us, or, we're stuck in relationships that really take our energy. Sometimes it's our health issues, and it hinders us from being who we're really meant to be. And ultimately, what I believe is that we have so much power within us to shift any area of our life. And indeed, these challenges are here for us to step up and to be who we're meant to be and work through those areas. So those are pretty much the principles that I teach in the program, so that people can make, the financial wealth they feel that they need, the business works and operates as it should, that relationships turn around, or even give you the confidence to walk away if you need to. All those things are part of life. And what I've found with my clients is that when they truly connect with themselves, the miracles happen. I talk about synchronicities and miracles do happen because we're deserving of them. But sometimes it takes a real pragmatic approach to implement certain things, and shifting away from our limiting beliefs and playing a different, breaking the patterns and playing a different game, playing a different inner game. So it takes a little bit of practice, and it takes guidance and revealing the blind spots that we all have. And that's what I'm about. And some of the shifts, quantum shifts that can be made in a short space of time, are phenomenal. So that's what I love, and empowering people.
Yeah, I think that what you have just mentioned, I mean, breaking the pattern, this is what we need to face when we would like really to move forward, actually, because sometimes we are blocked by something we don't know really what it is. And today I wanted really to concentrate our discussion around the blocks that happen when we are scared. Because as mentioned before, we have met on a VIP event where I came hoping that I will break my fear of being visible and the fear of making Facebook lives. And it was really transformational event for me. However, I was crying a lot. I mean, sometimes the transformational process is not an easy one, right? And the energy needs to fly like through you, through other people.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, because I realized really recently that obviously I am not the only one in the world who is experiencing this kind of fears. And I realized that you've been facing similar thing. And now you are, all the comfortably there online. So let's discuss a little bit about this. What was it for you? Was it also like for me, just a Facebook Live, or in general being visible and put your face to the brand?
Right, great question. My goodness. So two things. Yes, Facebook Lives, I had to face that fear, but it came first with the realization. When you have a business, your clients reflect to you some of the areas that we need to work on. And I noticed that some of our clients were doing so well, going from where they were struggling to reaching, a glass ceiling. So some of them were reaching almost six figures, and we're trying to break that. And in order for them to do that, they needed to be visible. And I recognized that as I was supporting those clients to break through that, I could see it within myself. And on reflection, a few years ago, even to the point of not being visible on my website. So back then, I have a business with my husband, who's also a fellow coach. And our website then talked about more corporate coaching, because we worked also with local councils and organizations, and helped coach local businesses as well. And it spoke about that, but it didn't bring into all this stuff that we mentioned just now, the energetic work, the spiritual work, the inner work, and then the strategy that comes after that. And I recognized that I was hiding, because there was none of that in the website. You couldn't see anything about my quantum programs. And the way I was bringing clients in was through networking and speaking with people. But you couldn't find me online, really. People couldn't see what it was I was about. So I recognized that I needed to make that big shift. And like you, Maggie, that it transitioned into becoming more visible online as well. That was the advent of us starting to do some of our trainings and programs online. And I realized I needed to be seen. that meant things like videoing. And the thing that I struggled with was being in front of a camera, even to be photographed, being in front of a camera, because there was something inside me that said, you're different. People aren't going to be interested, or you're not going to say it right, and have that real inner belief that it had to be perfect. And all those things came up when I had to face my own fears so that I could support my clients even more so that they can overcome their fears. And it got to a point where I challenged myself to, I joined a program where they said, get onto Facebook, create a Facebook group. And for me, that was like, oh my goodness, social media. That means even on Facebook, my own personal profile, I posted probably once a month. And you can even go back and look, before early parts of last year, it was literally once a month. So to have to become an expert in your own Facebook group, me showing up and being visible. And I kid you not, when I set up that group, I did some Facebook advertising to start bringing people in. But then, of course, you have to show up. And my very first video, it was in the autumn stroke coming into the winter time, so it started to get darker. And I remember getting everything prepared on video, my microphone, and sitting in front of this camera and preparing so many times what I was going to say. And for 5 hours I sat there and then went off and procrastinated a little bit, came back and prepared and practiced. And it got to a point where it was coming up to about 4:30 in the evening. And what happens is the anxiety builds up. And I can tell you, I could feel it. It was starting off in my head with all these thoughts. I'm not going to say it right. Okay, I need to keep practicing, get it right. Then it got to a point of, what are they going to think about what I'm going to say? Then it built up and I could feel it in my stomach. I could literally feel the fear and the anxiety build up. Yeah. And then I just burst into tears. And my husband, who was supporting me with all the technology, calmed me down and said, you're just going to have to do it. And I said, I know. So that first point was when I literally learned. I teach mindfulness, but it is about being mindful and just refocusing on the outcome you want. So it's like, look at the camera and understand that there are people at the end of it who are needing you. You are providing a service and they need you. So focus on that rather than focusing on yourself. And once I was able to just look at the camera and forget myself, that's when the words flowed. But if you go into my group and see the very first video, my eyes are really glossy because I had just been crying and I had to calm myself down and I had to really refocus myself and say, this is the message, this is what I'm here for, this is what I'm standing up for, and what on earth am I afraid of? The message that I was giving out was, I'm here for you. And I can only be here for you if I'm visible. So I had to break through that glass ceiling. And it was a big, big celebratory moment for me. People don't realize that when they see me in my Facebook lives and I'm just talking and I have a message to say, because back then that was one of my greatest fears. It really was, because my mind's eye was, I'm not a social media person. And I know there are a lot of people out there who think, I love reading and learning, but who am I to sort of be visible?
These are these convictions and the unhealthy beliefs that we keep in our mind, right? I was really having this, similarly to you, this perfectionist attitude. I wanted everything to be perfect, to look perfect, to speak perfect. And with my English, you cannot be perfect. With my dogs, which are somewhere in the background, usually, anything can happen. And it took me good several trials to simply to accept that we are who we are, and people love us for our authenticity, for how we interact with whatever happens to us. And this is the truth also about ourselves, and this is a big learning for them. Um, I wanted to ask you, how did you do it really? How did you crack it? Because for me, I was really struggling and I was miserable for good 4 or 5 months when I was trying and couldn't break the pattern. So I developed some kind of remedy for myself, and I knew that I need to practice. So since I couldn't practice go live, I practiced pre-recorded videos so that I wanted to feel like fully accustomed with the technology set up, the way I look, the way I speak, so that I was sort of building my bubble and expanding my confidence zone, expanding the bubble, so that the minute I got my assignment, lady, you need to do it, and you just go every day and do your Facebook lives, really going live was the last mile in a way for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't that complicated, but this hard work really paid off, even though I was crying and pulling my hair, that I cannot do it. So I was wondering, how was it for you? What was your magic trick?
Mm. So, as I mentioned before, when you have clients that are willing to step up, they become a reflection of you. So it was my clients that, at that time, I was saying it's a transition between when we were doing a lot of offline coaching and training and we were started to go online. I knew that this had to be part of that evolution of who I was. And also I was, at the time, my clients were growing their services, and it required for them to start considering, going online and creating offerings that were bigger than what they had before. So we were working on mindset back then. And one of the programs is we call Quantum Program Creator. They have to create a program that's bigger than they've ever created before because it's transformational. And so it meant that they had to become a different version of themselves. And I recognized that some of the things that they created was amazing based on their own skill sets or expertise. And in order to support them, I needed to do that as well. I need to go through that transformation. And the transformation for me was to use technology to become visible. And it was my clients that really held and supported me, because what happened was I said to them, I have a quantum group, and I said, look, I'm going to challenge myself, because I can't ask you guys to choose to break from 5-figure months to 6 figures or whatever, and just do it. I have to keep pushing myself and growing. So I'm going to challenge myself to speak to you online every day. And that was the beginning. We set a challenge for ourselves, and for me, mine was, okay, let's do something like practicing mindfulness and speaking to this camera, not to them in person, because we used to meet up quite a lot. They were at the time all local, and they used to come into the office, and they used to come in and do these masterminds and coaching sessions, and I would have to practice delivering this short piece of training when I couldn't see them, because for me, energy is so important. And by doing so, and then feeding back sort of immediately as I was practicing, gave me that confidence, because they were saying, we're here, we're listening to you, yeah, you sound great. And that was my way of recognizing that I'm not speaking to a piece of technology in front of me. I'm actually speaking to people who are wanting to hear. They're wanting to hear. They're not sitting there judging. They are literally, saying to themselves, what can I learn? What am I getting from this? How can I grow from this? So it requires for you to step outside of your own comfort zone and get over yourself to be there for others. And that's how I switched it around in my head. It really was a case of, I'm doing this because I'm expecting my clients to step up, so I'm going to step up. And it was a must for me. There was no other way.
Yeah.
And as they, even challenged themselves to charge prices that they were not used to. That for them was their comfort zone. Whereas, so they were slightly almost sort of following me in my footsteps, and I was challenging them to go online and pre-record so that they could leverage their time, pre-record their techniques, or pre-record whatever skill they have, so that they can leverage that time of theirs. And I was having to step up and just do it. And it's the best thing you can do. And Maggie, that's why what you're supporting people with is amazing, because now is the time to step up and evolve while we have that this transitional phase right now.
Yeah.
It's a case of who do I want to become? What aspect of myself am I choosing to show up and evolve into? What does my business what does it need to start looking like? And for me, it was a small part. The way I saw it was, it's a road, so that you start off here and you end up here. And part of that journey is to show up, and then regularly show up. And then as you show up, you start to use that visibility to promote, to create, to train, or whatever it is you do to get here. And you focus on the end destination. And I love, there's an Esther Hicks story where they were saying, you don't take a journey and then get to a point where it gets really, really tough and rocky and then choose to go back. You just get through it to get to where it is you want to be. And that's how you need to see it. This is just a journey of transformation, and doing transformation work with people and seeing how they've overcome huge adversities. Some of my clients have, to give you an angle, to give you an idea, and they are such an inspiration to me. But let's just talk about health. Clients, for example, that have reached rock bottom and don't know what else to do. Often they come and say, I've got an open mind, and they work through, for example, issues, and you could see them recognizing their patterns and playing it out. But when they push through, they get a different outcome, they get a different result, and then they recognize that there's something else that's there, and they're constantly seeing, oh my goodness, I am a different person. The way I look after myself is different. I have clients who have become medical miracles. They literally have, health files that were like that, but have been able to completely release themselves, because I believe that it's mind, body, spirit. I believe that your body is a barometer for who you are. And
it is, yeah, it is, for sure.
And working through that. So just seeing some of my clients work on themselves, it's like, oh my goodness, being visible is nothing in comparison. So that's how I had to see it, is that I'm doing this for my clients. I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for the people that I wish to serve. And help, and getting that practice in was the key thing, was to hear them say, thank you, needed to hear that, rather than, it dispelled the whole myth I had in my head that people were saying, oh, she's not looking right, or she didn't say that quite right, or she stumbled on her words. It wasn't any of that. It's who I am authentically. And that is, again, what needs to show up. Is it doesn't matter. Ultimately, to be authentic is to rise into that new version of yourself. It really doesn't matter if you're not saying it perfectly. As long as people feel the essence of what message you're trying to give, that's the most important thing. And I learned that through the Facebook group, and through working with my clients and supporting them now going online, or them, just being visible by getting brands out there, or whatever it is. So it's a big thing, Maggie, this whole being visible, particularly now when people are starting to, feel a little bit maybe contracted or want to hide. It's a hiding time, Now it's like practice. It's a great time to practice.
It is the only time, I think, in the full decade that it is given to us, to humanity, in a way, to practice. But what I see, and I see it with my clients, is that the fear of the anxiety that comes with it, of being visible, has very different faces for each of us. And sometimes, things that are like nothing for us grow to unbearable blocks to some other people. And even hearing that, I remember during this meeting we were participating, I spoke to Tereska and I told her, well, I am afraid of, being visible, especially with Facebook Lives. And she laughed at me like, only that? Come on, just do it. But for many people who are, feeling the fear so deeply in their bodies, the expression like suck it up and do it simply doesn't work. And you mentioned something earlier that your husband was supporting you, and he mentioned like, Tammy, you have to do it. And I've heard the same thing from my husband, like saying, hey, you are amazing, you are powerful, you are amazing woman, you can do it. I mean, there is no issue about that. But at the time, I didn't want even to hear it. And I had this thought that men are built from different genetics, they are built to fight, they are built to hunt, they are built to grab the whatever, the thing, the sharp objects, and go and kill the mammoths. So they have to suck it up. We have time to be with our feelings.
Yes.
But tell me, how long was it for you, really? Do you anticipate how long was this process? Because I was really surprised that it took me, 4 weeks really to feel comfortable. That was maybe 15 Facebook Lives and I'm done. I can improve it, but, to feel okay, 1 month.
So I think it's very much dependent on, I don't think I had that many, Facebook Lives that I did in a short space of time. So, but that is the way to do it, is to challenge yourself to do it every day. I did definitely challenge myself to speak to my clients online. So yes, maybe I did it. It might feel a little bit simpler because these are people I knew, and I knew
it's a safer circle.
It felt safer, but then it meant that when I then did go onto Facebook Lives, I knew that I was well practiced, and it got to a point where I just got my message out. I love what you said, Maggie, about the genetics of men and women, because I do feel that women, I talk about energies, and we all have masculine and feminine energies. To own our own authentic self and to be able to speak our truth is part of really tuning into our feminine, our divine feminine. And so when we talk about taking action, and particularly inspired action, like choosing to challenge yourself to go on Facebook, when that's coming from the right authentic place, that's a doing, that's an action, that's the divine masculine. And what happens sometimes is that we can get stuck in the divine feminine and become intuitive and say, this is what needs to happen. But we then need to really ramp up our divine masculine and do what we say we need to do. And men who already have the inherent masculine energy, like you say, they can just do. They can just get out there and do what they need to do because that's how they're programmed, right?
But sometimes they don't think, they don't feel.
That's it. They just do. and we can spend a lot of time being in tune with our feelings and our emotions, and then realize that, oh my goodness, if this is where the thoughts come in, and if we're not careful, we can sink back down out of our divine and into our ego, and then the ego takes over with what I call our cognitive mental body. So we have our physical body, which holds the emotion. Our emotional body, which holds our emotions, and our physical body, which displays it in your body, and our mental body. And if they all start saying the same thing, if they all align to these limiting beliefs, then we're in trouble, because then we're starting to think negatively about ourselves, we're starting to feel negatively about ourselves, and then it starts to show up. And the practice has to be overriding all those three. I think that's the key thing, is to practice letting go of the thoughts that come through. So with mindfulness, it is about recognizing the thoughts and acknowledging them and then letting them go. It is about then understanding the emotions that go with it, because some of these emotions are linked with our limiting beliefs, and we do need to recognize the emotion of fear. And then it might also be linked with, you know, beliefs of not being good enough, or beliefs of not being worthy, or beliefs of it has to be perfect, and recognize how they feel, like you asked, and how it goes into your body. And then it's a case of reprogramming that. So however that shows up for you, whether it's practicing, I did a few practices on my phone. It felt a bit strange, but I recorded myself on my phone and started talking to get into flow, recognizing what I looked like, what my body language was like. It was then about, like I said, speaking to my clients and getting some positive feedback from that. And then by the time I got to Facebook Lives, I'd got all of that out of my system, and it's a case of, what's my message? How am I here to serve? What do I need to do? And with a Facebook group, you have to show up as the authority. You're leading people, and that has to. We talk about sovereign energy. We talk about being in your leader role, and that's where the masculine, feminine, divine energy really comes into play. It's about balancing it out and then speaking your truth, and that again is something else. That is like, what's the outcome you want for your people, that your tribe? What do you want them to know? What do you want them to release and let go of? And when you get into that zone, it no longer becomes about you. It becomes about what's the outcome you want for them.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately it's all about the results, what you want to achieve with yourself and with people. And maybe last thing I wanted to ask you, what would you recommend to somebody who is struggling right now with visibility? What would be your words of wisdom in a way?
So we all have people who've already done a lot of personal development work are aware of this, the ego, but I call it, when we have limiting beliefs about ourselves, I call it our BS framework, belief system framework, but it's BS, right? And having worked with many people who've had to break through, like I said, old patterns, particularly when it comes to things around their business, where they feel that the external situations are happening to them, they have to really understand what their BS framework is like. And what I know to be true is that the visibility limiting belief is very much linked to trust. So the only reason why people struggle being visible is because they're struggling with trust, around trusting that they're going to be fine, trusting that others are going to receive and understand the message, trusting that they're going to get the outcome intended through the intention they set, trusting that ultimately on camera, through Facebook, that it's a process and it's an evolution as well. And it's okay. There is no right or wrong. It just is. So there has to be a lot of aspect of trust. And when you work through trust, it shows up in many different ways in your life. So it's a question that I would ask that you ask yourselves is, where in my life am I struggling with trust? Because this is just one of the issues. And trust of visibility is showing up and being authentic, but trusting that it doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter what comes out or how you come across. What really matters is the authenticity of the message. So for me, it's about understanding self. Where does trust or lack of trust show up in our lives, and let's start working through that. And then practice the visibility and practicing on camera. That's just practice. It's the same as riding a bike. Technically you know what to do. You just need to keep practicing. But when there's real fears, the real fear is around trust and letting go of the control. That, you know what, just know that it gets better, it gets easier. Just know that. And yes, you're right. When husbands say, you know, you just got to get on and do it. Well, it's working through the layers of, you know, calming yourself down, stopping with the thinking, the negative thoughts, and refocusing your attention back to what's the message you're trying to give. And ultimately that starts to flow, and then the energy flows. So trust, I believe, is one of the key things that we can all work
very well said. Thank you very much
on.
for your words of wisdom and for sharing your story. That was very, very inspirational. I felt touched also in many aspects. So thank you for this, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.